But one of the places where I still every year need the most help brainstorming is when it comes to finding engaging ways to get my kids excited about what they're about to learn. Because if the kids aren't excited, if they're not paying attention, then nothing else matters, right? They're not minds on and connected to what you're teaching. And not only is that not going to be an effective way to learn, it can be exhausting as a teacher when you know the kids are distracted or are disinterested. And what I have found is that AI tools are great at surfacing ideas that you hadn't even considered for how to make your content more engaging. So,
So on that note, can you tell us as a your middle school science teacher, yes?
yes, that's right.
So as a middle school science teacher, can you think of a specific content example where you used a chatbot to help you make that science content come alive for students?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, just this year, I was teaching about the periodic table, which in our chemistry unit, it's a difficult concept. You know, it's a kind of abstract. Students know that this table exists, but they don't really understand the underlying structure of it. And so I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, what are some engaging ways that I could kick off my lessons about the periodic table that would capture students' interest? And that prompt, just as it was, provided me with some great information. But one of the key things that I think a lot of folks don't realize, because as you pointed out, prompting is the key skill here, is that chatbots are designed to be like a conversation, right? They're modeled after the way you might text back and forth with a human. And that conversation is so critical. So when I got those ideas from the chatbot, it gave me two or three ideas that wouldn't work exactly for my students or my situation. One of them had me create a whole game that was going to take too much time. One of them was about doing some sort of play with my students, which I thought, okay, I get the idea, but I don't know that my students would do more than just roll their eyes at me if I if I tried to do a play with them. So I made sure to come back to the chatbot and follow up with an additional question. And there's a couple things that I added in. First of all, I told it which ideas it gave me that did seem close to what I was looking for. And then I asked it for more ideas like those. And I didn't just say more ideas, I put a number on it because I know that not every idea it provides is going to be useful to me. So if I ask for 5 or 10 ideas, then I know I'm going to be able to pick through those and find a couple of gems that I can either use as is or I can modify them by myself or with the help of the chatbot. So that was a critical part of it, right? Was coming back and asking for clarification or modification. And I think that a lot of folks who use tools like ChatGPT, they don't think of it that way. They ask a prompt, they get an answer. If it's not what they were looking for, they shrug and try to make the best of it instead of coming back and asking for a better response.
And on speaking about asking for that better response, did the chatbot do a better job in suggesting some engaging activities that would engage your specific students better?
Yes. In fact, as a matter of fact, even though I've been teaching this subject for multiple decades, it gave me an idea for a game that I could play with my students that I had never considered, where I gave them little colored pieces that had different pictures on them. So like pictures of things that are green, like grapes and trees and green M&Ms, and pictures of things that were red and so on, and had the students take those colored pieces and organize them however they wanted to. And from that organization, I was able to get the kids to understand that there are lots of different ways to organize things that have multiple properties. And that was the perfect segue I needed to dive into a way that the periodic table is organized.
Perfect, perfect. Now, the other thing that I was thinking of, Paul, when you were talking about that specific prompt and the fact that that prompt gave you suggestions of activities that you could use to teach your students or at least introduce them to the periodic table. But the next question that I was thinking when you were saying that is, okay, great, but I'm a busy teacher. Like you even said, you didn't have time to create that full initial game that it recommended. So you also talked about prompts to help you create new content. So taking that prompt, help me introduce the periodic table. What might be the prompt you would use to then have that chatbot actually help you to create the materials you're going to need to do whatever that activity is.
Yeah, that's the natural next step, right? Is I need the actual content, the actual materials I'm going to bring into my classroom. So the prompt I would ask for there is, I want to make a game that will introduce the periodic table to my students. Or if I'm still in the conversation where I got the idea, I can even just refer to it in the earlier part of that conversation. And I say, help me make the materials that I would need to use this activity with my students. Now, I would also add some extra details just to cut down on the back and forth. I want to tell it as much as I can about my classroom, about the number of students I have, about any special needs or requirements they have. If I have a lot of non-native English speakers, multilingual students, I'm going to tell the chatbot that because it will recommend resources that require less reading, less understanding of English. If I have students that struggle to sit still, then I'm going to mention that, and the chatbot's going to give me some ideas and some content that are catered to that specific group of students. So once I ask it for that content, it's going to create text because that's most of what the chatbots create is text. Some of them can create rudimentary images. And so maybe if there's an image on a handout, it's going to generate that image. But it's going to get me 70, 80% of the way toward that final product that I need to use with my students.